morning glory. Say there, stop that yawning. A brand new day is dawning. Pull up the shade and let the sun come through. Good morning glory. Spend about an hour underneath a shower and keep on singing like the birdies do.
Hey, it's Books of the Week on CPL Radio, and it's Monday, and you might be wondering, where's my Friday episode? Last week I got a Monday episode. I want a Friday. No, you people who like Friday episodes, I'm sorry, the jig is up. We're going to be dropping these on Mondays now because these weeks, especially leading up to this election and, all the other turmoil, we maybe could bring some brightness, some cheer to your Monday, or we'll just make the week worse. We'll keep you humble. And helping you stay humble is a book critic from Boston, Massachusetts, Steve Donahue. You know him.
Hello, everybody. I was a little bit taken aback when my producer said we were going to put these episodes now at the beginning of the work week. I almost did my patented impression of the Dowager Duchess of Downton Abbey and saying, "What is a work week?" but I've read about it.
So you see, Steve, on Monday morning, alarms go off. People get out of bed. They put on pants. All of this I know is utterly foreign to you, but that's okay. Someone has to do that too.
I collect the paper from the front porch without my pants on, which does cause alarms to go off. That is absolutely true.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, Lord.
To film an episode at our normal time, and my producer had an emergency in his crotch.
I really wish I had been rolling, because it would have been this great Jerry Lewis cinematic moment. Hoyle the hoiting with the binding in the lap and with the underwear and the hoit, and I had coffee in my socks.
He dumped coffee into his lap.
In the studio.
Had that recording time. So I did what you'd expect. I resoundingly fired him. And now we're moving the show. We're successfully recording, so all is well. But I want to stress to all of you out there listening and watching, I am still going to fire. If you don't, they'll never learn. Producers will never learn if you don't fire them.
If I have, I think the 286 more firings, and I'm truly a producer. So I'm getting so close.
Before you get a free hoagie. I don't know which it is. I'm not sure which you prefer.
I was just gonna say, just so you know, both are awesome. No complaints here. That barking you hear behind me is my dog. He doesn't like me making radio, so if you hear a little barking, that's actually my dog probably trying to say hello to Steve because he recognizes a kindred spirit. So, but nonetheless, we talk about books, not canines here. Well, that's not exactly true. Hi, Frida. You're down there somewhere.
If you hear any low-pitched growling, it's my little dog, referring to Jeff's little dog as, I hate to say it, but racially impure. That's her favorite insult for other dogs. I'm trying to teach her a better way, but the breed comes from Germany.
Oh my gosh, a topic I can't get away from today. So
when she sees an uppity dog on our walks, her attitude is never, "I want to bark at this dog." Her attitude is always, "I want to invade their homeland."
I've annexed your milk bone. Oh my gosh, it never ends with that bunch. That's right, never dawned on me. She is a Schnauzer.
Yes, the only breed of terrier that originated in Germany instead of England, which I'm sure is only a coincidence with the fact that she registers the emotion of happiness by being angry. I'm sure that's just a coincidence.
I can tell she loves me because of all the scars I have. Well, let's see if we can scar up some authors today. What we like to do a nonfiction book, and then we will do a fiction book, and then we'll do something called a wild card. You regulars know what we do around here, and you irregulars, what are you doing here? So let's get going in the nonfiction world. Steve.
Well, for nonfiction, we have a big book. It's a serious book. It's a major mainstay of the publishing industry for the fall. It will sell like crackers at Christmas time, I'm sure. It's Max Boot's big new biography of Ronald Reagan. The subtitle is actually the Life and the Legend. So you are dealing, he's at least alluding to the fact that this figure often eludes biographers because they go for the legend instead. And that's worrisome. That's a worrisome idea because we all know, those of us who are old enough to remember the Reagan administration, know that right from the beginning, the legend was that this is a kindly, nodding, smiling, affable old jelly bean fancier, and therefore, anything you want
describing your producer.
if you want to criticize Reagan, well, then that's not fair because he was really checked out. Even before people knew about an Alzheimer's diagnosis, they were saying, well, you can't criticize him because he's largely hands-off and checked out. He lets his subordinates run the government. But then the people who want to praise him would say, oh, no, he was as sharp as a tack and was involved in everything he did. That's slippery.
Yeah.
For any biographer. And Max Boot really acquits himself well in this book. He slides into that dichotomy once or twice, to the point where I wanted to say, oh, come on. You can't rig the game that way. He's either innocent or guilty.
Right.
He's either innocent or guilty. And if you're going to some well-known scandal from his administration, of course, a huge number of people connected with his administration were found guilty of crimes, were sentenced to prison, all sorts of things like that. It seems like a walk in the park compared to a recent United States presidential administration. But it was a huge number. And so if you go back to one of the scandals, the first scandal, for instance, was that the Reagan administration was conducting private illegal diplomacy with Iran about the hostages that were being held to get them released in order to boost the campaign. Or the Iran-Contra affair.
Right,
if you
Oliver
go
North
to
and
one
all
of
that.
those scandals, and you want to dig into whether or not what Reagan knew and when he knew it, essentially. And I go to your notes, your sources for that discussion, and it's all the memoirs that came out from Harper and Row by Reagan's lawyers. Well, those are worthless documents.
Yeah.
And I shouldn't have to tell a biographer that those are worthless documents. They are carefully vetted legal lies.
Right.
Go through the reporting that was happening and Max Boot does a really good job of that. Really good. This is one of those nonfiction books that sort of expands in my mind the more I think about it, the more I sit with it. I've already written a review of it, but I honestly do think it is the first serious Reagan biography.
Wow, that's great. Okay.
Not the first good one. There have been other good ones, but this is I think the first one that is at least trying to look at Reagan as a figure in history. I don't think Max Boot can do it. I'm not sure that any of us who lived through it can do it.
Sure. I mean, so beyond affable and doddering, which is what we got, is there enough evidence to claim that he did know what he was, he was sharp as a tack, or is that?
It's tricky.
Okay.
It's all due to the Reagan diary is all little jots of this or that, saw so-and-so, baby's getting bigger, that sort of thing. And the Reagan White House diaries are equally unyielding to the point where it starts to look suspicious. So it's really, really tough. I have increasingly admired the way Max Boot threads that needle. So those of you out there who are wondering, a lot of people I'm sure who are listening to us really like presidential biographies.
Sure.
And maybe a lot of those people are a little fed up with all the bad ones.
Indeed.
All the ones that come out that say, that just buy into the legends and don't let you know the realities. Max Boot is doing the best he can, I think.
Yeah.
With countering that.
Do they get into the personal, like his relationship with Nancy, his relationship with his children? Because his children it was an interesting brood.
Yes.
Ron Jr. especially fascinating.
Yeah.
Because he did not, I would say, this is judicious, he did not snap into a conservative mode, shall we say.
No. And that made the final chapters all the more moving. Because there were, like in any family, there were some rifts in the extended Reagan family that nothing could bridge. And then there were other rifts that something could bridge, that the old man finally slipping away. Well, that would be a time where you would just forget any bad blood, and you would go there, and then when you would collected yourself, you would get in front of a podium and tell everybody what a great guy he was, and you wouldn't be lying.
Yeah,
you wouldn't be lying about that. It's interesting seeing the different reactions of the Reagan children and all the various cousins and associates.
sure.
Because by the time Reagan was slipping away, they'd had a long time. It's impossible to be vengeful against an Alzheimer patient, especially at the end when they're pleased by little child things and don't know anybody. It's impossible to hold a grudge with someone like that.
Yeah.
But in addition to that, all of these relatives knew by the time he slipped away that he was not only a gigantic figure in American history, but also largely beloved.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Max Boot handles it well. There is virtually no syrup in this book.
That's fantastic.
Virtually no treacle of any kind, which is, I was looking for that. That always irritates me. I wrote a big stack of editorials excoriating Ronald Reagan and also George H.W. Bush, and also an obstreperous and obnoxious senator named Joe Biden. I wrote large stack of editorials excoriating all of them. Reagan, I didn't do so much excoriating. I mainly left that for his apparatchiks. I think I bought into the line back in the 80s that it really didn't do any good to criticize him.
Yeah.
That you should criticize, the holy trinity of the three parts of his brain that ran his government.
Sure.
That
was Alexander Haig was a controversial figure, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Fascinating fellow.
He's a fascinating fellow, and he's a really good example of a thing with Max Boot that I did not expect. I've read everything that Max Boot has written, and I've reviewed a couple of his books, but boy, oh boy, does he pull out the stops for dramatically effective writing in this book. It's not just a question of his research and his balance. It's also that he really writes vividly.
That's great.
Draws characters vividly.
Well, and characters.
It's delightful reading.
Yeah, absolutely.
The only problem I think with maybe with a modern audience, maybe with an audience that doesn't remember Reagan, that was born, in the last 40 years.
Sure.
I would think that reading audience might be a little impatient with the pre-presidency Reagan.
Governor of California and all that stuff.
Yeah, or Hollywood or whatnot. And
time for Bonzo, yes.
This book is 800 pages long, and Reagan doesn't get to the Oval Office until 400 pages in.
Sure.
So that might be a burden to put on people who have never watched a Reagan movie. They don't care about who's governor of California. They don't care about who's president of the Screen Actors Guild or anything like that. I think that Boot compensates as much as he can.
Nice. I happened to visit Mr. Reagan recently. I watched a movie this week, rewatched. I've seen it before, called This Is the Army. Have you seen this, Steve? What a film. Oh my gosh. It's a musical put on by the war effort. And it is the most syrupy, saccharine, and yet at the same time, oddly inspiring in its own twisted way.
If you know the Hollywood roster of the day, talk about star-studded.
Sure. George Murphy and
they're all over the thing. But it is off the hook.
Oh, hokey. I mean, it has the corner of the market on Hoke, but I'm sure it's all over YouTube. Give it a look sometime if you're interested in, and that's a very young Ronald Reagan in that. I mean, he's probably in his 20s, and he's a song and dance man. So, fascinating stuff. Do you think, a final question on this one, do you think anyone who comes at this book with an agenda either way will come away with a changed opinion?
Well, if you're talking about a contemporary agenda,
yes, I am.
Max Boot has to drag that in. He has to. I don't know that it was his decision. I hope that it wasn't, but it got him on Joe Scarborough, which is where you want to go.
That's where you want to be.
That's where you want to be. Exactly. You want to talk to the ladies at the View. You want to be on Joe Scarborough talking about Trumpism. There is no Trumpism. There is no Trumpism. This guy is not just a symptom. He is the disease. He is it himself. There's no Trumpism. There's just Trump. I've read a couple of reviews of this book that actually make reference to the age of Trump. I want to throw a book at these people.
Oh my! That'll date your book.
He has to drag that in. It's totally unconvincing.
Yeah.
Reagan forgot more while even before Alzheimer's set in, he forgot more about the workings of government, the nature of government, civic responsibility, the way history works than Donald Trump ever knew or ever wants to know.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So there is no comparison. There is no through line at all. That is just a way to get on Joe Scarborough.
Yeah.
And I guess, it's tough out there in a booming economy and a flat recession rate recovery. I guess it's tough out there. So if you're writing a book about Reagan or Garfield or stewed tomatoes, you have to make a Trump comparison.
Right. My Brewers were booted out of the playoffs this week. It's Trumpism, I'm telling you. Mika, how are you? Anyway,
Over to you, Mika.
So there we are. That is a glowing recommendation, and
after last week.
Yeah.
we had to have some positivity.
People love last week, just so you know. So anyway,
this is a book to get. Is the short form here. If you've got a father you're buying a gift for, a grandfather who you're buying a gift for, if you've got maybe even a Trump cult member in the family, you want to remind them that once upon a time they were Republican.
Yes. Yeah.
It's terrific. It's also really good reading. That's the point I was trying to make about the character.
Sure, yeah,
it's really, really good reading. It's Max Boot's best book.
That's the goal. I mean, that really, I don't care what I don't care if you're writing about squid or algae or Trump. And some people can't differentiate the three, but nonetheless, if it's good writing, it's good writing. And that's what we talk about here on the show. So
the whole point is that we want to talk about is good writing. Oh, what's the next?
Moving on to fiction. Before we do, we're going to we are going to take a station break because I don't let my doggy in this room. He is going to kill both of us. So hold tight, everybody. Come on. All right, there we go. It's the at-home show, so I can do things like that. Should we say hello to my boy? Here we go. Frida, this is the dog you want to marry. Can we do a little matchmaker, a little yenta, a little here we go. She's so impressed by him. Sorry, pal. Not this week. He may send her some mail this week, though. So, Anyway, fiction. Fiction is where we're heading, and it sounds to me like this is going to be a real humdinger, as they say. What you got, Steve? He's recovering right here on the show.
We're not supposed to have dead air, but that pause was dramatic, even pregnant. Because the book that we're talking about next is The Road by Cormac McCarthy. His Pulitzer Prize winning gigantic pile of dinosaur poop. But we're not just talking about the book. Ooh, could we? We're talking about the graphic novel. There is a graphic novel with artwork by Manu Larsenet. And his artwork is wonderful.
But
he's drawing a book that stinks in every way. It is fractionally bad. It's horrible in every way.
To give the unanointed some framework, The Road is a post-apocalyptic story.
Supposedly a post-apocalyptic story about a man called the Man and a boy called the Boy who are pushing a dilapidated shopping cart full of their supplies down the road somewhere from somewhere else.
Could you elaborate on that?
So
or did he?
At one point not visible to the boy. He calls out, but he doesn't call out a name. The boy is at one point not only not visible to the man, but at another point seemingly dying. The man never says his name. Because they're all supposed to stand in for us. Really? I mean, what is there in the world other than men and boys? I know what you're about to say, and I don't want to hear it. What is there in the world other than men and boys, fathers and sons?
In this relationship, am I the boy? Are you the man? I don't know.
Surely in the world, there isn't anybody else except men and boys and fathers and sons. And if anyone in the audience is tempted to think, well, what about women or gay people? The apocalypse is going to get you first. We don't know what the apocalypse is.
They don't mention it's nuclear or biological.
No idea.
No.
At first, we think that the man might just be not referencing it. They might just not want to talk about it. I don't know what he and the boy would have to talk about otherwise.
Baseball scores.
We think that he might just not be talking about it. But about the halfway point of the book, we realize that Cormac McCarthy has no idea what it is. there are hugely contradictory details to it. In other words, you're supposed to get to the end of this book if you're his target audience and say it doesn't matter, man.
But it does matter, boy.
Well, if you're writing a book and you get to the end of it and your best way to defend anything in it is to say the characters don't matter and the plot doesn't matter.
What's left? What's left? I ask you.
Oh, the writing is what's left. Man. There's no punctuation. The writing is what's left.
This man is continued. I will say that Mr. McCarthy, I had not one, but 2 or 3 people seeking out his works this week at my very library and professed to be fans. I tried to get their names and phone numbers for you to call them, Steve, but I was not successful.
Now, at the library, would you typically go in for a graphic novel adaptation of a book you already have on the shelf?
Yes. Oh, 100%.
And would a graphic novel adaptation do well?
Yeah, okay. That's a whole separate crowd. It's a building format.
It's a whole separate crowd.
Yeah.
Okay. So
definitely.
Do you think there's any chance that, and it doesn't just have to be this piece of crap, although Manu Larsnet is a wonderful artist.
Sure.
I would love to see him draw something that wasn't garbage. But is there a chance that the graphic novel version of a book would do better, would go out more than the non-graphic?
Yes, and I'll tell you why. You're not going to like this. Frequently, local area high schoolers are assigned books like The Great Gatsby or Harper Lee's To Kill a Mockingbird, both of which have terrific graphic novel adaptations. The artwork is gorgeous, and they'll probably get a B. So that happens.
Pick the books instead of reading?
Yes, sir.
Oh goodness! The local Ute of Cedarburg should know better. There are things a book can do that a graphic novel can't do,
and vice versa. I mean, I do want to ride to the defense of a graphic novel, but
nothing the book of the road can do that a graphic novel can't do better.
No,
but a good book, sure.
Yeah. These Cormac McCarthy fans, one of which walked out under their arm, very pleased, so satisfied that they had both The Passenger and Stella Maris under their arm, expecting weeks of joy. I have a feeling they might not get that.
Oh, they will. They will. Cormac McCarthy fans get joy out of his books because they turn off the joy-o-meter. So if you were to give them a book by, hang on while I check my phone for the technical term,
please,
a woman. If you would give them a book by a woman, they would come back to you and say, "Oh, the characters weren't defined at all. There was no plot. The author set up a big MacGuffin and then didn't tell me anything about it. What am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to write this book myself?"
Oh my!
That's the joy-o-meter when it's working well.
Yes.
And then you give them a Cormac McCarthy book and they turn the joy-o-meter off. Oh, I'm supposed to invent the plot myself? Oh, how deep. I really do have a dodgy relationship with my father.
This is why I don't like this, because I'm too lazy to invent the plot myself. Give it to me. Come on. I can't. You can't expect me to be responsible for that. Oh, my. I will add that this plot line, if you're into post-apocalyptic anything, which is a good time to do it. There's a movie from and it reminded me of The Road, but good. And basically a woman, lead character. There's a movie called Testament that came out in 1982 that is harrowing, will shred you, and does everything that The Road wanted to do so much better.
Everything that The Road does not do.
Yeah.
Testament. I wholeheartedly second that. The broader point being, of course, that this plot, if there is one, it's not a plot, it's just a Mad Lib.
It's just a thing.
The plot has been done better so many times.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is just a carpetbagger. That's all. This is just somebody showing up and saying, "Hey, I might like to do this. I don't really work on it. I don't want to work on it, but I'd like to do this."
We should underscore that Oprah herself made this a Oprah book at one time, which didn't help. Was not at all a help to literacy or literature in general.
It's going to keep going at least for a little while. I have heard a rumor, I believe it's true, that in the next 3 years, there's going to be a 2-box set of Library of America, Cormac McCarthy.
Oh, dear.
So we're not done talking about him on this show.
Clearly not, because I'm addicted to the feel of an LOA book, so I'll probably buy it. God have mercy.
Well,
Wow.
you're at the service of your patrons, right?
I am.
You're going to want
Like you wouldn't believe.
you're going to want a Live of America set.
Yeah.
Whether you
Yeah.
like the author or not. It would be
Absolutely.
I'm the first person to say it would actually be bad if you guided yourself by who you like and don't like.
No, I sneak one in every year, and wouldn't you all like to know what that is?
They already know. Neville Shute. It's the weirdest, most C-list Neville Shute book of them all.
How did you know?
Be on your library shelf.
I want every copy of that book. I want to round them all up. So there we are, The Road, Cormac McCarthy. His lore, his legend looms large for some reason, and there we are. I remember when I finished The Road, because you're bringing some stuff back here, because it's been a while since I've leafed through it. And leafed through it being the operative word, and I do remember finishing and saying, I think the one word that fell out of my mouth inadvertently was, so? What is one supposed to glean from that book?
Yeah.
That's the problem. Every book you should come away with something, I think.
At least the author should be writing as opposed to just posing. So at the end of the book, one of the main characters, the man, is shot through the leg with an arrow from the window of a nearby house.
Right.
He immediately runs across the road into the room where the arrow was shot, and the man who shot the arrow is not there. And we're very specifically told that the bow is not there either.
Spoiler.
Okay, if you're the author and you want to tell me that, then that becomes the next thing you deal with. You don't just say that. What does the guy do? Jump out the window, Three Stooges style?
Now that I would have liked. That would have been a rave review for me. Certainly.
It's a tenement building. There's one staircase. The man had to pass the shooter on the way up. But all of a sudden, we've got this freaking Lee Harvey Oswald at the book depository thing where I must have passed him, but I don't remember it.
The magic arrow theory of The Road. Yeah, we should work on that. It just occurred to me. I've dusted this off on this show before, but Cormac McCarthy wants to be this, but he's not even talented enough to. Oh my gosh, you're getting me started. Look, you're winding me up on Cormac McCarthy, who I've really never had a problem with before this episode. I never gave him the time of day. So, well, I should have grabbed what we're going to do for Wild Card today. Is going to be extra wild. This is going to be off the charts wild. As you can see, these are not books, kids. These are from Jeff's voluminous video shelves.
I hate to break this to you, Grandpa, but the kids aren't going to know what those things
I know.
are.
Okay, so you take the silver disc, you put it in I don't know. Wikipedia. So we are going to actually talk about books to movies this week here on Books of the Week. And Steve will give me his impressions. He says, I don't do impressions. I'm a reviewer. But he will give me his impressions on what if this was a successful adaptation or not. And this should be loads of fun.
Can't wait to see what you picked.
I don't even know where to start because I'm going to start light. It's sort of a no-brainer, easy, a low-hanging fruit, that sort of thing. I grabbed Mike Nichols' adaptation of The Graduate.
Okay. There you go.
Here we go.
The book that The Graduate is drawn from is awful, and The Graduate is intermittently good, largely on the strength of the acting.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go.
There we are.
Perfect example of the movie being better than the book.
Yes, very much so. I read the book. I ran into this movie at the perfect age, 22. If you're 22, you have, you run into this movie and you say, "Oh, finally a movie that gets me." Now Steve obviously just watched it the first time last week because he's also 22.
I'm a 90s kid. I was born in 96. I don't know what you're talking about.
But I read the book thinking that it would add extra depth, and I'll be damned, it does not.
No, the book is not only a period piece, it's a bad period piece.
Yeah.
No, perfect example.
Absolutely.
We're starting off strong.
Excellent. I grabbed an interesting one that I've just watched recently, and I avoided when it came out, but I I think you'll find this fascinating. This is Beowulf, the CG animated version of Beowulf.
Yeah. I'm all in favor of a big fantasy epic version of Beowulf. I'm all in favor of that. But if you're gonna do it, you probably want to make sure that the special effects are up to your vision.
This thing is weird, man.
Special effects are not up to the
No.
director's. They are downright disturbing. At times, they are downright disturbing.
Yes. This is what's his name? Zemeckis, right? Yeah, this is Zemeckis, who has his continued fascination with replacing everything with something fake.
Yeah. I'm all in favor of an adaptation of Beowulf for the big screen.
Sure.
I'm all in favor of that. But this is a miss. It's a miss. It's awkward. It's weird. It will make you self-conscious.
It does.
You Catholics out there, for reasons that you can't even pin down, will suddenly want to go to confession when you're done. There's nothing explicitly erotic or sinful in it, but it feels weird to watch. You'll want to go to confession just to be on the safe side.
Thankfully, I've got.
If the priest could break the confessional vow, I bet the priest would say, "Another Beowulf watcher."
I've got Yom Kippur coming up, so I'm good. I'm covered. All is well.
I don't even know that. I mean, would you call it entertaining?
No.
The weird factor overcomes everything.
Yeah.
The Anthony Hopkins as a toddling baby being carried on people's shoulders, you never unsee that. You can't unsee that once you've seen it.
It feels like the screens between rounds on a video game from the 90s, like a Windows 95 game. That's kind of what this movie feels like. Yeah. So anyway, we'll just pass beyond that one. This is an interesting one I picked up recently, and I watched that kind of enjoyed.
Can't you feel it? The film that it leaves behind? Oh my god! It's such a disturbing movie.
Oh. I'm gonna mail this to you for that very reason alone. I want this in your house. I don't want it in my house anymore. I want it in your house. So I picked this up and I wound up enjoying quite a bit. It's Dan Curtis's version of Dracula with Jack Palance, and this is actually great fun.
It is rather enjoyable.
I mean, it's silly. I mean, it's kind of silly, and I would say actually it does capture more the romance of the character more so than a lot of other. I mean, Lugosi, I guess, does that well, but Palance is having the time of his life, by the way.
He's enjoying himself immensely, and that's worth it to watch. I haven't seen it in years. No. I'm a little bit. I'm having a tough time concentrating on it right now because for the last 2 weeks, on nonstop repeat on my computer, I have been watching an advanced screener of Nosferatu.
Oh, you have it,
and I just.
Are you allowed to say that? Are we gonna get in trouble?
I've been watching advanced screeners of Nosferatu and Megalopolis just dueling with each other.
I don't even know. Are you all right? Do I need to send someone over?
No, I'm not all right. They're radically different movies, except that, as I always say, they both star tall, black-haired, six-pack-a-day tobacco addicts. Other than that, they're very different movies.
I see that working better for Nosferatu than Megalopolis, what the Corky just mentioned.
I don't know where I stand on Nosferatu. It may be the greatest Dracula adaptation of them all.
You're not the first to say that. I've read some rumblings about that, so it's going to be exciting.
There's no fun in it at all. So it is not the same thing as the Joker.
Perfect.
There's no fun in
it. Or you could go see the Joker movie that's everyone seems to love so much this weekend. So
at least it doesn't have. I mean, I will be thinking about this as my default Dracula movie as opposed to Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula, which
it's its own thing.
It's its own thing, but I always think about it, and I never want to. I always think about it when I don't want to. Weird combinations of ways.
Strange thing.
Tom Waits.
I live for Keanu Reeves' British accent, though. I need that. I need that in my day. Sometimes. Mina, my darling Mina. It's the most wonderful thing.
But when it's Tom Waits, I always conflate it with Mystery Men.
Oh, sure. I love that movie.
His Renfield is in the cell. I keep expecting him to sit back and say, "So what about that fraculator? Did it work?"
Great. I got to go watch Mystery Men tonight again. I love that movie way too much. Oh my. This is interesting. I kind of cheated a little bit, but I read this before I saw it, so I'm gonna call it a book adaptation. And this is Neil Simon's Brighton Beach Memoirs. I enjoy reading plays, and and Simon's plays read well, I think.
Oh boy, do they ever. Boy, do they ever. Oh my. All of you listening, if you have not read a Neil Simon play, they read wonderfully.
Yeah.
Oh God, they do.
Absolutely.
And he's been very lucky in his adaptations, because a coked up Hollywood director today would think, oh, I can do better than that. Right. Whereas most of the time, the Neil Simon adaptations you get on the big screen that you can get on, what are these things called again?
So you open this up here, and there's this little thing in here, and you can put that in a tray, and a movie plays. Kids,
most of the adaptations that you get of Neil Simon, the director is lifting whole pages, blocks of pages of his cut crystal perfect dialogue.
Yes.
So, and this is a perfect example of that.
Yeah. So a kid named Jonathan Silverman plays Eugene Morris Jerome, who is sort of the cipher for Neil Simon, and really wonderful performance. So
it's wonderful, wonderful stuff.
Give it a look. We're ending big, Steve. My final. Hang on to your wigs and keys. Something that you've been talking about quite a bit here in the autumn.
We could go on forever. It's very dangerous to get us talking about movies. You'll notice that neither one of us has made a reference, no matter how obscure, to any movie at all that the other hasn't seen. We could go on like this for days at a time. We could do a CPL live marathon.
Oh, yes, we could. And you know how we could do that? Let me just throw this in here real quick. One good way of doing that is if you visited patreon.com/books of the week and drop some coin in there. If you drop a bunch of extra coin in there for the Friends of the Cedarburg Public Library, we could be persuaded to do entire movie shows on Patreon. We could do that.
Also, little known fact, one of the Friends of the Public Library went to Eastern Europe on what he thought was a basic financial errand and came back with a predilection for eating flies. And he said it was to pave the way for his Lord and Master. His Lord and Master came, saw, got staked through the heart and decapitated. And the awkward thing that the friends don't want to mention is that he's still collecting and eating the flies. We haven't been able to break him of that habit. I think he just likes the taste.
That same friend is actually running the book sale this week, just so you know. So feel free to visit him.
This gesture. How to give it away.
Well, we did this kind of out of order because we usually say that at the end of the show. But let me give our last movie here. You're going to love this. Oh, I can't wait. Conan the Barbarian, Arnold Schwarzenegger. You've been talking about this on your channel for quite some time. How do you feel about the adaptation?
You know when you're watching. Well, I watched this in the theater.
Sure.
You know when you're watching it after about, I don't know, maybe 15 minutes. You know you're watching an immortal piece of cinema. And the first reaction that if you like Conan, the first reaction, you watch the movie, 15 minutes in, you think, oh my God, this is going to be a cult classic forever. And your next thought is, unfortunately.
I see. Okay. All right.
This is...
I don't have a lot of experience with the books. I have not read Robert E.
Everyone who thinks of Conan thinks of this movie. They don't think of the book. They don't think of the short stories. They don't even think of the Marvel comics. They think of this movie.
Very much so. Yeah.
And this movie is...
It's trash. I regard it, though, as very well-produced trash. And
to come a little full circle in this weird podcast, it's also incredibly Teutonic.
Yes.
Incredibly Teutonic. And Conan isn't like that. It's classic. It's classic, but in terms of adapting stuff.
Have you seen any Conan ever represented on screen satisfactorily?
15 minutes of the what is it, the 2006 movie with Jason Momoa.
Yeah.
About 15 minutes of that movie.
Oh, okay.
But otherwise, no.
So we're overdue. Someone should get this right.
Oh yes, we are overdue.
Okay.
The problem with the Jason Momoa Conan movie is actually good. I'll die on that hill, but it's not great. and it wasn't going to start a franchise because the thing is called sword and sorcery. If you leave out one of those two, you don't have sword and sorcery anymore.
Right. Oh.
You can't leave out one of those two.
We used to call those Italian Hercules movies, Sword and Sandal. But then the sword would never show up and be like, well, we got the sandal.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
The problem with the Jason Momoa Conan movie was not the cinematography. It was, the villain was, could have spent a little more money for but it certainly wasn't Jason Momoa.
Yeah.
Who was perfect for a young Conan.
Sure.
Problem with the Conan movie, the Jason Momoa Conan movie, I very rarely say this about movies, was the script. They should have rejected this script. They should have gone with a different script.
Sure.
They should have been a different story.
Yeah.
A different story might have made it work. And
the Robert E.
Aquaman.
yeah, right. Right. Oh, that would have been lovely. Are the Robert E. Howard stories in public domain now?
I think they are in Europe. Some of them are in Europe.
I'm reaching out to the screenwriters out there. You may have, I want to find an opportunity for them to get it right, so, or the filmmakers. So, you never know, but, yeah.
Hollywood ought to take another crack at it, or, do a multi-episode thing.
Sure.
Except that, not to end the show on a bad note, but we all know what that would be like. We all know what that would be like.
So I wonder if you're using the rings of power.
Right. A cable adaptation of Conan is the last thing we would want to see.
It's the last thing we need. Yes.
Literally the last thing we would want to see. So better that it not happen. Better that it not happen in the world of John Connor in Terminator getting shot in the head so the future can be saved by a 5-foot tall girl. Better that we don't get it than that we get an Enterprise commanded by a bisexual blue-haired Captain Kirk. Better that we don't get it than that we get wizards and hobbits in the second age of Middle Earth. Better that it not happen. Better that we get it, that we not get it at all, than that we get a lavish, no-holds-barred production of the reign of Henry VIII, in which Anne Boleyn is as black as a moonless midnight. so that and unfortunately not a good actress, so that you're at least an actress who knows how badly she's being miscast and she can't do any good work, so that when you watch the show and look, there are knights and there are horses and there are goblets and there's Henry VIII, and it doesn't matter. It's the rise, the reign, and the downfall of Anne Boleyn, and the whole time you're watching it, you are saying black, like the character in Austin Powers who has a mole. You're literally not thinking about anything else. You can't even concentrate on whether or not she's doing a good job. You're just saying black. Whether you're a racist or not, it's the only thing you can concentrate on.
Well, yeah. So since he brought up Austin Powers, I will bring this up one more time as we wrap up the show. Send us $1 million.
I've got that in my pockets right now.
Patreon.com.
Anne Boleyn to go the whole Austin Powers route and turn to the camera and say, yes, I am aware of the fact that you are thinking black and I am myself black. Because that's what the guy with the mole does in Austin Powers.
Right.
I realize the irony of the fact that I am a mole and I also am a mole.
It would have been so much better.
In other words, it was stunt casting.
Yeah.
And that's all that Hollywood and cable shows do anymore is stunt casting. And every once in a while, that can work.
Yeah.
It should work all the time. Bridgerton was an amazing success. You literally end up not caring.
Yeah.
But with Conan, I think you would care.
Yes. Yeah. Right.
I think so. You would care if we got. Oh, I don't even know what to say.
Don't do it.
No, we have reached the point in the 21st century where if you have a beloved IP, you say, God, I hope this is never adapted. As opposed to what we all grew up saying, which is, boy, I'd love to see a movie of this.
Right. Disney's saying that right now about Star Wars. God, I hope we never adapt that.
Yeah, about Star Wars. Yeah.
Wow. Anyway, well, this is a wonderful episode. I had so much fun. We definitely we gave you one glowing recommendation and one book to look at the art and throw back on the pile as quickly as possible.
Also, other recommendations. We both wholeheartedly recommend Brighton Beach Memoirs, the movie.
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt.
You cannot go wrong. Find that old Jack Palance Dracula adaptation.
Yeah.
You'll love it.
Yeah, that's right.
Make some popcorn and watch it. You'll enjoy the heck out of it.
Oh, without a doubt. Absolutely. The follow-up to Brighton Beach Memoirs, Biloxi Blues with Matthew Broderick, equally good. So
Equally good.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we go forth, everyone. Find quality entertainment. Life is too short to read bad books and watch bad movies, but Steve and I will continue to do so. For some
you should let us know in the comments if you want us to do another batch of movies next week.
I have them.
You're not going to need to twist our arms at all.
A sniffle, a cough, a wink. We're there.
And it would be a relief for me because otherwise I am only watching Nosferatu and Megalopolis.
We have to save Steve. We have
over and over again.
Ladies and gentlemen, we must save Steve and Frida. She's like collateral damage. These movies are pouring into her head too.
I'm so sorry for Nicholas Hoult because he starred in the cable version of Renfield,
right,
with Nick Cage as Dracula,
right.
And he's in another Dracula production.
Oh.
I mean, on one hand, I'm happy that he's getting work, but talk about courting typecast.
I have a movie about an anemic gentleman that I'd like Nicholas Hoult to. There we go.
I don't think there's any chance at all that we can avoid in 10 years him playing Dracula. I don't think that's just going to happen.
It's just going to have to be. Oh, boy. Fun for everybody. All right, everybody. Read a lot, watch a lot. Come back here Mondays from now on. Don't bother Steve that the show doesn't show up on Friday. I know you'll fill his inbox. And as
yes, the Mondays now to start the work week.
You're not ingratiating yourself to anybody with that, Steve. Most of us have to go places on Mondays. Bye, y'all. Have a good day. Enjoy. Thank you all.